Welcome to the Operations Committee meeting for Thursday, February 18th. And here we go. We're going to call the meeting to order. And we're going to start first with Maria Lisa so she can do roll call.
Ms. Gutierrez. Mr. Meyer. Present. Mr. Rodriguez-Pina. Mr. Vasquez. Present. Chair Martinez. Vice Chair Fano. We have a quorum, Madam, with 3. And Mr. Cancio is also present.
All righty. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Cancio. You like not to miss a meeting. You're welcome. I noticed. Council, we go with declarations of voting conflicts.
Do any members of this committee have any conflicts with any items on the agenda? Seeing none, we move forward.
All righty. And then we open up for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to appear before us and speak, please state your name and address for the record. And
good morning, board members. My name is Daniel Munilla, 5400 Southwest 82nd Avenue. I'd like to take this opportunity to provide you with an update with respect to our protest on the ITB 1601 and the legal proceedings connection therewith, and request, as provided under Robert's Rule, that a board member move to reconsider and withdraw the award to Odebrecht, pending the outcome of the hearing on March 28th. You lose nothing by doing so because, per the court's most recent order, MDX cannot enter into a contract with Odebrecht until after MCM has its day in court on March 28th, and the next board meeting is March 29th. For clarity, we are merely requesting that the court opine on whether MCM's 2 irregularities were A, material, or B, not material and waivable. As you may recall, MDX staff advised the Operations Committee and the board that the irregularities were material and not waivable, and that MDX had never waived anything like this in the past. We respectfully disagree with MDX staff and are confident the court would have already ruled in our favor, but for Odebrecht's request to stay the proceedings until March 28th. I would like to leave you with the following thoughts. 1, the judge's initial order stated you would not prejudice MCM's rights. 2, by awarding the project to Odebrecht on January 26, MDX prejudiced MCM. 3, the hearing on MCM's motion has been scheduled for March 28th, and most respectfully, we believe it is in MDX's best interest that it award the project after the court rules on the issues. We would further like to point out the following. The Wall Street Journal reported that as a result of Odebrecht's crimes, Odebrecht's principal has been in jail for over 7 months, and Odebrecht has been banned from bidding in its home country of Brazil. Had Odebrecht's parent company been an American company and had it been debarred in any state of the U.S., it would not be permitted to bid on projects for MDX. It has been reported that Odebrecht's credit rating has been seriously downgraded upon information and belief, and you can ask your staff to verify. Odebrecht is seriously late on the 836-28 project, which award is up on appeal. And upon information and belief, Odebrecht's ability to bond projects has been curtailed, and it was recently unable to procure a bond for the upcoming I-395 project. I remind you that MCM was the highest ranked bidder, and MCM's bid provides for the completion of the project some 7.5 months earlier than Odebrecht. As such, it is absolutely in MDX's best interest to award to MCM when the court finds MCM's bid was responsive and the irregularities could be waived. Faced with all these uncertainties, we respectfully request that MDX withdraw its award to Odebrecht and wait for the court's ruling on March 28th. Thank you very much.
thank you, Danny Munilla. Anyone else from the audience would like to speak on any item? Okay, seeing none, the public comment section is now closed. At such time, I'm going to ask council to address what Mr. Munilla has said, so we all know what's going on.
Well, do you want me to address it now, or do you want me to address it at the board meeting?
Absolutely. You can address it now before we start our action item, if the members are okay with that. Good.
Well, yes, we agreed to an order to stay, that we would not sign with Odebrecht till March 28th. But other than that, I don't agree with any of his statements. And I went on the record that we followed our procedure. I'm very comfortable with the legal position that we've taken. and I highly recommend that we move forward.
Okay, so
And
basically what you are saying that there isn't a signature that's moving forward to award that final agreement.
No,
Notice to proceed is not going to happen yet.
no, we won't. We won't enter into a contract till March 28th, till after March 28th.
Because the document before us, signed by Judge Rodriguez, does say for us to hold.
Yes, we agree to that.
Fine. And but to address the other part about seriously delayed on 83628, I've got our construction oversight folks, and that is not an accurate statement. If any of you want to confirm, disagree, whatever.
That'd be great if they can come forward and.
Yeah. Sergio, if you can come forward, please. Tell us where we are.
Good morning, members. My name is Sergio Esu. I work for ESC Consulting as a general oversight and project manager for 83628. The project is on schedule, and right now the contractor is fully committed to the project and has provided enough resources to complete the job on time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the
further?
board members?
Yeah, I would just like to, from staff, to see a report of their most current schedule update. Sure. I don't know when you all do that, but we obviously have two varying differences, so I'd like to see something in terms of a project schedule update. And the other item I had a quick question was with respect to the allegation that they could not procure or unable to procure a bond for the I-395 project. Not that it necessarily affects us, but I thought that project, has it even been released yet by FDOT?
The cone of silence has started. The RFP was released on February 8th.
Okay, so they haven't submitted yet.
Nobody has submitted anything.
So at this point in time, no one would know.
No one would.
Okay.
Any questions? All right, we move forward. I mean, you know, all sides have a different story. The key is to focus on the facts and how are we supposed to proceed with the facts. So nothing else on this item. We move forward with the operation action items. And is there a motion to approve the summary minutes?
Second.
Okay. Anyone against can do so. The summary minutes pass. Move forward with item B.
MDX procurement contract number MDX 13-06, MDX work program number various, toll collection system, equipment installation, maintenance, and support services, $4,306,984.57. Endorsement of item 2 to the cooperative purchase agreement with Transcor.
Madam Chair, Steve Andriuk is going to handle this item. And for the record, Juan Toledo, our Deputy Director in charge of engineering, he's sick. He's been out for a week and a half. He'll probably be out a little bit longer, so we hope him a speedy recovery. So thanks, Steve, for filling in on this.
Was that due to the timeout or what's going on? Sorry to hear.
He's, he has issues. He can't drive. He's got issues with his eye.
Oh, sorry to hear. Speedy recovery. All right.
Madam
Mr.
Chair, committee members, motion in front of you is for endorsement of the Second Amendment. This is to increase the contract capacity for the cooperative purchase agreement that we have with Transcor in the amount of $4,306,984.57, which then would lift the new contract upper limiting amount, not what we're spending, but the cap, to just over $26.6 million. There are three pieces to this. And as stated in the summary explanation and background on April of 2013, we entered into this cooperative purchase agreement moving forward to provide us with the installation, maintenance, and support services related to the toll collection system. We amended it in February of 2014 for Transcor to design, install, test, and commission the new toll zones on 836 and 112 for our final movement to open road tolling. This amendment included the mainline zones on 836 at Northwest 57th Avenue and 17th Avenue, and temporary ramp toll zones at 27th and 57th interchanges. There was also the temporary and permanent ramp zones for 87th Avenue interchange. The First Amendment didn't include the costs associated with the final ramp configurations because the final roadway geometry was not available. Also, that wasn't included were additions for the additional lanes at 57th Avenue and the cashback toll dividend award. So breaking the three down, for installation, testing, and commissioning of the toll equipment of $3.6 million. The, excuse me, I gotta.
It's a good thing you're not on TV.
It's a scratch in my throat, and I'm like choking on
Didn't
it.
say that, but I. We're trying to better understand what you're saying. I know this is all English, what we're reading. Just, in a nutshell, what is it? What is it?
Well, like I said, there are 3 points. The first point were for the tolling zones that we did not include in the First and Second Amendment, or the First Amendment. The other piece is the uniform financial message, which is a requirement for us to move into interoperability with the Turnpike. And then the final is the cashback dividend toll award.
May I?
Yep.
All right. Just in layman's terms, once again.
Let's do something. Let's go ahead and call the question.
Okay.
So that way we can, open it for discussion. Is there a motion? Yeah?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so it's open for discussion.
Should I continue then?
You have a question.
So the question then is, I guess, why some of the things that were not included, why? Why weren't they included? That's just a common sense question that comes to me when I hear the certain lanes were not included in the First Amendment. Why not?
The final design for 17th Avenue and 27th Avenue were not completed. We were unsure of the geometry of what we were going to do. Specifically, at the current time when we did the amendment, we had 4 one-lane ramps at 27th Avenue. In the final configuration, we're actually moving the movements so that north and south directions of 27th Avenue will merge and come together, where right now it's a full clover leaf. We'll change that configuration. So we'll add, for instance, in the final design that we're at now for 27th Avenue, you have a 3-lane solution ramp. Right now the ramp is only 1, so we're going to make it a 3-lane going through that zone. That was unknown at the time.
We closed the system in November of 2014, given the geometry that existed. We knew what 87th was going to look like because we had the final design of 87th Avenue, so we can include the current configuration, temporary, and the final. But we didn't know what the final design was going to be on 836 at 57th Avenue, 27th Avenue. What was agreed to, what was approved, was the divergent diamond interchange, which is not single lane. They're multi-lane, and that's why we didn't add it. We did the temporary, and now this is for the final configuration. As far as the cashback, we didn't know the cashback prior either.
This contract was approved when?
2013.
And the First Amendment?
22,000 or 22 million.
First Amendment, when did... So when it was originally awarded and amended, was it amended within certain prescribed amounts, that caps that were contemplated, or
Yes.
There
was the original contract that we entered into was to do an assessment of our system, and I think it was an upper limiting amount of $199,000. When the assessment came back and it said, okay, here's what we could do for MDX to transition 836 and 112 to open road tolling, they went we used the cooperative purchasing agreement, which was a contract that stipulated all the pricing for lanes that the Turnpike had. We then used that contract and came up with the pricing for 836 and 112. It's all lane determinant. So if it's a one-lane solution, it's this amount. If it's a two-lane, it's this amount, three-lane, et cetera. At the time, back in when we did the First Amendment in 2014, we didn't have the final designs for the locations that we indicated, so we were unsure what we were going to have. We knew we would have at least one lane, so we put that one-lane solution in. That became the temporary. The only one that we knew for sure was 87th Avenue. At that location, we knew we would have to do an interim temporary and then a final, so we included all that in the pricing. For the cashback dividend award, we hadn't even had board approval at that time. So that came after the fact, and we used the cap that was within our purview to support the cashback dividend award. Now I've got to add that dollar value back in because we drew it from 87th Avenue, which isn't going to be done till this fiscal year.
Madam Chair, if I may. Understand what had occurred. My question really is, why wasn't this anticipated, going from one lane to potentially more lanes from staff in terms of not the contract amount, but again, this is a cap from what I'm understanding. Correct. So why wasn't that anticipated early on and that cap increased early on for any potential changes or modifications or increase of?
The various designs that were proposed under the design build for 83628 be holding up a lot of capacity for no reason. It could have gone anywhere. So rather than tying up all the capacity 2 years in anticipation, you wait to see what the actual amount is, and now we have it. That's why we have a contingency. We'd rather leave it in contingency than tie it up in the contract.
And what have we used to date on the contract? Because this is a cap. So you made the comment, we don't need to use it all necessarily. It's just...
It's my understanding that, it's on the last page. The remainder is...
We did $22 million to date. We have $90,500 available. And that's why we're adding this amount, because what we basically did was borrow from 87th Avenue to take care of things that were going on for cashback. And now we're going to replenish it.
The second page.
Gotcha.
Okay. Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Also, if I could, because there's a history to this. If the board remembers, 836 and 112 was always contemplated, the lanes were always contemplated to be done by ETCC, the integrator that we had. We had pricing, they had bidded and all that. When we terminated their contract, we chose not to execute the Phase 3 or the third supplement for the lanes. And we went to the cooperative purchasing agreement. At that time, the first assessment was to figure out, can we do it? Then we executed the piggyback.
I think I've been one that gives great deference to staff, and with the disclaimer that I'm a little uncomfortable with this one. What compromise would there be if we defer this item from a timing perspective? Because shame on me for not having asked for a more thorough briefing on this one. I think I would have much benefited from that as opposed to having to learn about this here. What kind of compromising or what kind of downside is there to a delay on this increase?
It would impact, to some extent, our revenue stream. We're looking to transition everything over to by July 1st of this year. So we've only got a small window in order for that to be done. The projects that are being built right now, 83628, of the facilities at 27th Avenue and so forth, are nearing completion. So we'd just be sitting there. And I wish there were some more that I could give you if you had any questions at this time.
I think we do need to address it. I don't think holding back is the solution.
Okay.
I think a better understanding of what this is and the implications. I think that's what we need to address, and this is the great forum for this. Okay?
I have no problem with rolling up our sleeves and learning more right now.
Let's start right now start from the beginning with some questions. We have a contract, and the contract that was awarded had what amount? Right. But now let's go through the rundown and you watch.
When we initially did the contract with TransCore, it was for the amount of $199,000. And that was to do a system assessment of everything that we had to...
Let me interrupt, because when I asked the question earlier, you went there and you're going there again.
Wait. This is, he knows what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I want to know, because it's not that they didn't know what they were going to do. They weren't pushing the button on telling them to do it then. They knew at some point what the projects are and maybe the changes coming. Right. Because it's not like you're working in a vacuum. Right. You know what it is you're going to perform. You know the projects that are coming. You're not pushing the button at certain times. So now, for the level of comfort, and I'm looking for the level of comfort, the amount that was awarded, and was it open-ended, and what was all the work that they were supposed to be getting or they could do under this contract? Because, you see, that's what gives us I'm not awarding these people more that wasn't part of the bid, more than what. See, I know where you're going, and I understand. So that's where we need to go in and just define and hone in on that.
If I can,
that's what I'm looking for.
If I can, Board Member Vasquez, when we entered into this agreement to piggyback from the Turnpike's TransCore contract, the original Amendment 1 was for an upper limiting amount of $22.3 million. The scope of work that they were going to complete was our entire 836 and 112 to ORT. We knew where the tolling zones were. We knew what the master plan called. We knew what the board had agreed. We knew where the main line gantries were going to be. We knew that the ramps needed to be closed. We knew what the pricing was. So that First Amendment, what we awarded to TransCore was what we knew. We knew that 83628 interchange at 57th Avenue, it was $22.3 million. At that time, we could have guessed and put it at $27 million in anticipation of this, but we chose not to because we wanted to know specifically what the design configuration would be so we wouldn't be committing more money than we had to. Right. The design configuration is done by a design field forum, and that wasn't awarded until February of 2015. At that time, we knew what the configuration was going to be, and that's where we moved forward.
My only concern to that point, and I understand everything you've explained, is that the additional $4 million are not subjected to the system as we know it. The additional $4 million are not vetted or procured. They're not. It's whose numbers are we approving?
No, we're using the contract. We're using the contract amounts, the cooperative purchase agreement. The contract's amounts are set by the state. So we're just basically these are the quantities we need. The prices already were set and were procured competitively. That's how it is. But to your other question that you said about delay and all that, we're right now in the design build process. I think Mr. Meyer asked for a schedule update based on Mr. Munia's comments, and we're going to provide a schedule. I think the big key here is a delay on this could affect the civil contractor because the civil contractor lays out the civil works, then the integrator has to come in and put the equipment, lay out the equipment. If the civil works is ready and the equipment isn't put in, it could potentially delay the design build. So that's where it's at.
So in essence, going back to the beginning, things that were known when you procured this item, you knew the pricing of everything that you eventually would end up buying from them, or needing from them to produce. That's the key to the whole thing. It's not like this is coming outside and not that's the key to the whole thing. The actual bid contract, everything was disclosed. You're going in and it's like an a la carte situation. Now I need this, and you already know the established price that was agreed upon way in advance when they first won it.
To put it in another way, rather, it should not be perceived as an overrun. It should be perceived as, hey, we'd rather come back to you as we need things rather than having estimated an amount early on that might have been exaggerated. Okay.
This isn't an amendment because of an overrun. This is an amendment for a new use of work needed. Right.
Understood.
We're all clear, we all understand what it is this is? We're saving the toll dollars. We want to make sure that nobody is getting more than what's due and that it is being competitively bid. That's all it is.
And
Just better
as
know.
it's stated, this is an upper limiting amount. It's not the price that we'll end up paying, hopefully, until the final design that we're working through. Actually, we had the meeting this afternoon for 82638 or 28 to maybe even reconfigure those zones so the price would come in a little lower because it's a la carte.
So then, does this contract have a cap?
Yes, once approved by the board, the new cap will be $26,606,000.
Okay, so did it have an original cap?
Yes, the original cap was $22,309,000.
Okay, and we have the authority outside of the contract, okay, even though it came in with a cap, to go in and increase the cap?
I think
We can do
yeah.
that. The
But I think
contract
we're-
allows for that.
But I think we're talking two different things. I think the contract that we piggyback off of, or cooperatively purchase, which is competitively bid by the Turnpike, sets the pricing for all the various equipment and services that Transcore is going to do. When we choose to piggyback, we choose a payment method. And the payment method, compensation method, we say is an upper limiting amount. So it's drawing from it up to that cap. That's how we set it up. It's not a lump sum. It's not that they get every penny. We chose to do it as an upper limiting amount at 22 point whatever million. Now we're asking you, because now we know more information and we want to draw more, to lift that upper limiting amount to accommodate the additional work.
So to the
Wait, I got a question and then I'll let you have the floor. So you're telling me that this contract is not just between them and us directly. We never awarded it directly. This is a piggy bank with the Turnpike. So things are a little bit different in terms of a cap because it really is a la carte.
Yes.
We keep adding to it and buying what we need.
Correct.
Okay, now here comes the next question right off the bat. Knowing now what we know, is there a reason why we're not procuring this contract? Why we're not going in and saying, not right now, perhaps not this because it's time sensitive, but we know we're going to need more. We know we're going to need more services. So go ahead and fill me in because I know the answer. So I just want to know so it's all in one queue.
Right.
The expectation right now for 836 and 112, this is the end, meaning this will be the final solution of tolling zones. The next iteration that we have, or the next scheduled transition of equipment and vendor, would be on 874, 878, and 924. That we would look then to re-procure, or we can also have the opportunity, if the price comes in higher, to go back to the a la carte. So we're giving the options at that point. That's our next step. What this is within the boundaries of 836 and 112, those systems are linked. So it's not conceivable to provide or get another vendor to come in and put a lane solution in that would then not be linked with our current systems on 836. That's really the issue. Roadway-wise, we could do it, 874, 878, 924. Those are all separate with currently ETCC. And we have 836 and 112 with Transcore. Those work because each roadway runs through one host.
Mr. Vasquez, do you have, did it answer your question? Do you have another question?
I'm good.
You're good? I have another question. How many companies actually do this?
Right now, from the latest that I understand that an RFP went out for lanes, 5 companies out there at the level that we're talking about can do this job.
So there could be competition.
Yes.
So there could be competition. It's not like, so wouldn't it be fair to say that as we move forward beyond this that we're looking at today, that anything else that we also need for the other roads, that we are looking for a bid.
That
To
would-
at least consider whether or not we can shop around and get something better, lower, or not, or smarter, or not.
Madam Chair, that would be our recommendation.
Okay.
As we move forward to update or to replace the other 3 highways, we would request an advertising for competitive procurement. Decisions wouldn't be made until the pricing came in.
Right.
That's-
Madam Chair, the one thing that you said, which is probably the most relevant, is smarter. Technology is changing. The process that we collect tolls are changing. I've got a design that I put out to the vendors that do this work that said, what if we made it more effective and efficient, where I would reduce the price because I don't need all this fancy bells and whistles, I just need this. Would there be a solution out there? Right now we have to cut the roads up every time we put a lane in. Anytime you have to redo the road, you got to put new equipment in. So we're looking to become more efficient by having something that you can put up anywhere and not have to cut up the road. So yes, we are looking to meet the technologies of tomorrow.
Okay.
When this was originally procured competitively by, did we say FDOT? How many companies submitted? Do we know that?
I'm sure it was the 5.
And because of, I think we were relying on the fact that that was competitively procured to conclude, and I'd like to ask Carlos, that we are within the purview of our powers as a board eventually authorized to take this action without another procurement.
Yes, I think we're allowed.
Yes, we are. That's the cooperative purchase agreement process.
In essence, what we're doing is increasing quantities. This was part of the contract. We anticipated it. We already have it in the contract that we originally entered into with this vendor. It's the quantity that we're increasing because we didn't have the design configurations because we were still waiting for the design build firm to be selected and to give us those designs and those concepts.
And just for the record, I will support it because I have been reassured not only as to our authority to do so, but also because of the fact that it's preferable to do the a la carte incrementing as opposed to having started with an exaggerated amount.
Right.
So that's it.
Good for everybody to understand. How did we get here? We got here because there was a situation with a former vendor that was doing the service, and we had to quickly move to get the service in place. And the best solution to get the service in place, I'm just, putting it in a short-winded perspective, it was to piggyback on the turnpike. Everybody understands? That's how we got here. That's really how we got here. Okay? So with that, do we have a comfort level that we know enough and we can proceed? So any other questions? There is a motion and a second. I'm calling the question. Everyone is in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carries. I noticed there was...
Madam Chair,
I was just going to say that. I noticed there was some...
record to reflect that I supported this amendment, this motion.
Yeah, I was going to say something about, I heard some noise on the speaker that perhaps we had a member. So welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome, Mr. Pena. So your vote will be recorded.
Thank you.
Right? Next item.
Madam Chair, can I ask Mr. Pena if he has any conflicts with any items on this agenda before we move forward?
No, sir, I do not have any conflict.
Rick Rodriguez being there.
Item C.
Not sit next to us.
Item C, MDX procurement contract number RFQ 12-02, MDX work program number 10019.050, construction and engineering and inspection services for system-wide implementation of dynamic message signs, $125,775.75. Endorsement of Amendment 2 to the contract with AECom.
Madam Chair, I'll take this, and I've got the general consultants if we need to answer, but I'm going to try to put this in lay terms. We entered into a contract, a professional services agreement with AECom to be our CE&I, our construction inspection. for this design-build project, which was to install the dynamic message signs. World Fiber Technologies won the job. World Fiber Technologies has had issues in fabrication. Bottom line is that they're late. We agreed that they would be done by December 19 of 2015. It came to our attention that they're going to be late. Now the new date is February of 2016, mid-February, by the end of this month. We have assessed liquidated damages in the amount of approximately 60 calendar days at $3,057 a day, which is about $183,000. This amendment is for the CEI to oversee the additional work. It's going to be offset from the liquidated damages.
No. We were still getting information. Okay. All right. The item is open for questions.
Just to confirm, Madam Chair, with staff and our executive director, so due to the liquidated damages assessment, that those dollars will be recouped after the completion of the contract?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? And these people, World Fiber Technologies, they do acknowledge that they signed the contract and that this clause is included in there.
Painstakingly,
and
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
They
I
do
understand
realize
it.
that, right?
They absolutely understand it.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
I didn't miss anything, right? Good.
No, because it could be in black and white, but they could still forget it.
They're aware of it.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other information that we should know about this item? Where are these signs going?
You're seeing them up. They're at many of them are at the toll gantries themselves. They're the dynamic message
digital,
signs over
yeah.
the digital signs.
The digital signs.
All through our system.
There's a motion and a second. Everyone, all those in favor?
Let me ask a quick question while we're on that point. I'm sorry, because you brought something up, and I always pass by these signs, and I wonder, why are they so archaic? I mean, you have just yellow dots creating, letters, creating words, and we talk about the implementation of technology on our roadways, and that's one of the most draconian signage that I see. So I was just curious.
Well, Ivan's here, but all the signs that pertain to this contract, the yellow dot ones were actually installed by the Florida DOT as part of Section 5 or the Port Tunnel that had them. All of ours are digital, multicolor, modern type signs.
Thank you.
The new wave.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those, but I didn't know. Okay, perfect.
Do you know that your vest spells something today? We're looking at your vest.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a quick question. This has nothing to do with the All Vision contract, right? This is no way, shape, or form affiliated with that.
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Those people work with MDX anymore.
No, these are ITS signs, Board Member Rodriguez Pina. These are not.
Thank you, sir.
No. I had a motion and a second, and we were voting, and there is a member who has been wearing a very bright vest and keeping us all very awake because it sounds like a big yellow sign, even though we're talking about digital signs. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of this item?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Aye.
It carries. D.
Item D, MDX procurement contract number RFQ 15-07, MDX work program number 83629.051, construction and engineering and inspection services for State Road 836 interchange modifications at 87th Avenue. Endorsement of the negotiated agreement with A Squared Group, Inc. in the amount of $8,298,076.98.
Yeah.
The item, is there a motion? I'm calling, I need to open the item for discussion, guys.
Move.
So I need a motion and a second. It's open for discussion.
Madam Chair, back in August of 2015, and I have Ronaldo Cortez and Sergio here who negotiated on behalf of MDX with Juan Toledo. But in August of 2015, we selected A Squared, Inc. to be the CEI for the 87th Avenue 83629 project. We began negotiations with them. We wanted to wait to see what the schedules and bids were going to be from the bidders. The apparent bidder, which is Odebrecht Construction, Inc., based on their construction schedule, we negotiated, and it's going to anticipate additional staff. For that matter, all of the bids that came in, which were more aggressive in schedule, would require additional staff. We've completed negotiations. The amount before you carries us through the entire project. We will execute this contract. We have an agreed number, but we will also wait to execute this contract as we know how the construction project moves forward.
Okay. Any questions from the members?
Yeah, just if you could just further go into that, because I mean that's a substantial increase from 8 to.
Our schedule was over 1,000 days. So when we do our estimates, we don't assume means and methods. We don't assume night work, day work. It's a very straight line estimate we do. That number that you see in the bottom, which was the $6 million something dollars, was based on our construction estimate. This increase is based on the schedules that are proposed by the bidders, and it'll require more oversight on our part because there's going to be concurrent construction occurring throughout the project.
Thank you.
Questions? Yeah.
This is an increase over and above which amount?
An amount that we had put in the work program as a placeholder for work program processes. And I think it's spelled out in page 2 under the fiscal impact. Funds in the amount of 2.5 will be released from contingency to accommodate this increase in the work program. Mr. Vasquez, years ago at MDX, we used to have a contingency on each individual project. So when we would set aside budgets for projects, we would put the contingency within the projects. That wasn't an efficient way of doing it. It tied up a lot of money. What we started doing, I believe it was in 2007-8, Marie, if you can remind me, is we look at the entire work program now, and instead of putting a contingency on each project, we do a program-wide contingency each annual year. It's a better management of our funds. It doesn't assume that because it's in contingency, the contractor vendor has access to it. So,
Yeah, Mr. Cancio.
I would like to make a comment. I am not a member of this committee, but if the Odebrecht quote of bidding that is about 210 days more, if we have the Monilla that was 210 less, that means that this price going to be lower of the $8 million.
Actually, the price would it depends on how the schedule and the work sequence, but if the schedule from MCM is more aggressive, it'll probably require even more oversight because there would be more things going on to cut the 200 additional days from the schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but the winning bidder for this is not Odebrecht. This has nothing to do with Odebrecht. This is the work of supervision. And the fees, the rates, how are they determined?
Board members, I'm Sergio Basu from ESA Consulting. Basically, the rates are based on the MDX cap rates that we have for each classification for inspector, project engineer, and project administrator. Those rates are then negotiated based on the FDOT negotiation handbook and process, and whatever audited letter the consultant has. And based on the salary that person makes, the operating margin, and the overhead, that's how we get the rates. And we multiply that by the hours, and from that, you get a summary fee at the end. And that's how we get to that figure and the analysis from the project schedule.
It's all pre-established.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions for him? Any other questions for him? Okay, and this is a question for Marie. In terms of the contingency, because on the previous one we we're taking from contingency. On this one, we're taking from contingency. How is the contingency funding being affected, and where are we?
Every year when we present the work program, we replenish the contingency fund. So the new work program will be presented to the committee in March, and you'll see contingency amount in there, and that's where the money will be utilized.
And where are we now in this budget year that this is coming off of on the contingency? Do we still have money there, or are we almost at the borderline edge?
We're not at the borderlines. I believe they've utilized up to 60% of it, and I think last year was about $7 million for this fiscal year of 16.
Okay. All right, very good, which means that this will be funded. It's not an issue. Okay. We have a motion and a second. If I hear no one else asking to ask a question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Passes unanimously. Move on to action item E.
Action item E, MDX procurement contract, ITB 16-04, replacement and upgrade of certain communication network infrastructure components, estimated $600,000. Approval to advertise.
Madam Chair, Ivan Del Campo is going to handle the next three items, E, F, and G. And I guess before he starts, and I'm going to steal his thunder, this goes to Board Member Meyer's comment about technology. All of these items are preparing for technology enhancements in the future, preparing ourselves for it. So
That is correct. So, good morning, Madam Chair and members of your committee. I bring this item today as introduced by our legal counselor, seeking a motion to approve the advertisement of an invitation to bid to replace and upgrade certain communications network infrastructure. Since our beginnings, MDX selected Cisco as the provider of our core communications infrastructure. This request covers basically three main areas of the MDX communications. One is the communications network components, the information system security, and the enterprise wireless. The aggregate estimate to cover these three areas is $600,000. In the case of the communications network, the $530,000 estimate includes Cisco switches, servers, voice over IP phones. Most of these items are reaching end of life, and it's also it's actually reaching end of life, and also we need to ensure continuity of services by upgrading some of those components. In the case of the information system security, we're seeking for the $30,000 upgrade to the firewall. For the past several years, our auditors have recommended that we implement certain authentication methods to enhance our security footprint. By doing this, we will be meeting that request. And the next one is the enterprise wireless for an estimate of $40,000. 2 years ago, we implemented a very low-cost wireless solution just to explore the opportunities within the buildings, how it would be used, and things like that. After 2 years of use, it has also been recommended by our external auditors to upgrade to an enterprise solution, and we're seeking for $40,000 for that. So, in essence, our recommendation is the approval to advertise an ITB. This request will allow MDX to stay current with new technology standards and meet previous recommendations by our auditors. The funds had been already budgeted under the approved MDX operations budget.
Ivan, I just wanted to add that the ITV or the solicitation process is going to be limited to those authorized resellers of Cisco, since we have the Cisco system as our core system. So it won't be open to any member. They have to be authorized resellers and distributors of the Cisco.
You know, it's funny, you're getting into the questioning I was coming in for, because there's words here that says distributors of Cisco hardware and services. So it's a specific.
right.
Yes.
Yes, to add to that, basically, even though we're using the Cisco manufactured components, there is still a competition, and that competition is open to authorized Cisco resellers, vendors that are qualified by Cisco and are also one of the things that we do as are part of the state term contracts that actually goes through a very extensive, if you may, qualification process from the Cisco component. So it will not be granted to a particular vendor authorized by Cisco. It's actually, there's a competition on it. We basically work.
Before you continue, if there's any other thing that we need to know before answering the question, Ivan, let me open the item so we can freely discuss it. Second? It's open. Go ahead and continue that thought, but address how this is competitive if it has to be Cisco distributors.
Yeah, the competition component doesn't come to the manufacturer at the manufacturer level itself, but it goes to the resellers. So let's say for years we've been using Cisco, and actually just to add, the other two components are very similar with this thought. Of course, different vendors because it's to do different things. But in the case of what we're talking about, just the Cisco component, Cisco is a manufacturer. We've been using the technology for years. We have invested not only in the capital investment on the product, but also on the knowledge and by our staff members who are the ones that maintain on a day-to-day the operations of that equipment. So with that said, what Cisco offers, it's a number of authorized resellers that they go through their proper training in case that we're seeking for services, for installation services, that they are authorized. They meet certain requirements to resell their products. And there are, I think, over 100 of those that meet those requirements. So we basically open it. We have part numbers because our engineers in-house have come up with a design. They work with Cisco itself. We work on the design. We come up with part numbers, and it's a way just to provide it to the authorized vendor. Says this is what we need, part numbers, and all the vendors are able to provide a bid on it. Some of them, provided a higher margin, lower. They make a big difference on the services that they provide, and that's all internal to the vendors itself. So the competitive component is not at the product level. Okay, it's not at the manufacturer level, but it's at the resellers level.
Got it. Any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have a question. Understand completely the process. Appreciate you going over it. The question that I have is related to the future upgrades of the system and what auditors are telling us we need. I believe it was just yesterday, if not the day before. We had a hospital system in California that paid $17,000 in ransom. So you talk about cyber attacks in the United States, I think becoming more and more prevalent. It's something scary to think about, and I don't know if we address it in this ITN or ITB, or if the auditors have addressed it or made any comments to us in the past. But I really think it's important for MDX to start considering that with the further implementation of technology in our expressway system that we need to consider. Has there been any conversation of that?
And the conversation...
Security systems.
Yes, it's actually, we do take security very, very serious. And throughout the years, we have implemented various technologies. Sometimes the auditors actually come back and make recommendations. We evaluate those recommendations, similar to the one for the wireless, for example, or the information system security one that you're referring to. They say, well, this is basically what we recommend you to do based on what we see outside. We say, we concur with you, and then we go ahead and implement it. We look at it. Some of the things sometimes do not apply. Some they do, based on our operations. We do have various layers of, without getting into the details on the security aspects of it, various layers of protection, and we basically implement best business practices, whether it's working with the community, with the security community, or with the auditors internal. But we do take information system security very, very serious, and we could come back or even whether it is specifically for you, show you kind of the things that we do without getting into a lot of the details on those.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to add to a little bit to that, and that is related to security of information. Fortunately for MDX, outside of employee information and so forth, everything else is open to the public as it is. So we're not really a target. What they're looking for is Social Security numbers, credit card, and so forth. We don't maintain those. We have contractors who have layers and layers of security, much more than any of the hospitals, because that's probably the least on their thoughts, that have to meet payment card industry standards levels of security. And they go through significant audits on an annual basis where they actually have people come in that do try to get into the system and see how well that they design their firewalls and so forth. So fortunately for MDX, we don't have that problem. But you still want to be able to have some layer of security like he's talking about, so you don't allow people to get into and take our email system over or something like that, and disrupt our operation. And I think that's key. And I know Ivan does an exceptional job and his staff to ensure that we're meeting at least the minimum, but a comfortable level of security.
Yeah, just to add to what Steve said, just real quick, we're actually, for the next budget, we're going to add to our budget services that will allow us to go out and seek for professionals that could come in and do an external assessment. We use those sometimes with our partners, with the Florida Department of Transportation, with FIU students, with so forth. So we try to partner with a large community, even actually larger than us, in terms of the systems to help us and tell us, well, I think that you should implement this, you should do this, you should do that. But next year, we believe that we're going to go ahead and have a specific contract out there to at least once or twice a year to come in and do an extensive assessment from the outside.
Thank you.
I appreciate that you said that, because that's where I was going on the line of questioning. How do we know that what we have is the right thing, and how do we know that the Cisco infrastructure is exactly where we need to be, and that we're adding new bells and whistles to it, or replacement and repairs? How do we know that we shouldn't be with something else? Everything changes pretty quickly. Things get faster, smarter. So how do we know that that isn't the better way to do it, to go find out before we even maybe spent a little bit more than $500,000 here?
Sure. Well, basically, not only through the knowledge of our internal staff and their engagements with a larger community, such as the University of Miami, the Florida International University, and staying current with, let's say, market conditions, how each of the vendors, the emerging vendors, are doing in the market. One of the things that we take at heart is how are the vendors that are providing us the service doing financially. Luckily for us, in the case of the three vendors that we stay pretty much very current with them since the beginning, has been Microsoft, has been Cisco, and Dell. But basically, we stay current with the industry by participating in training. All of our staff has achieved a heavy training schedule on a yearly basis. That's something that, thanks to working with the board and the budget, training has never, not even during the hardest times, difficult times, has been impacted on our side. Another thing is we had services similar to the ones provided by Gartner, but in this case is with, let's say, Infotech or EBS or ECB, which basically provide the same services as Gartner, like a recommendation, like a market, if you may, let's say like not just a recommendation, but an overview of how the market is doing in case of the different technologies and how strong each of the vendors are. So we believe that, quite frankly, with the ones that we have, we're above and beyond, basically doing what we need to.
So you're saying that even though we will look to get an analysis done and recommendations, whether it's right or it could be better, that it's still okay to spend this money and upgrade these items at this point in time, prior to getting a complete analysis and grasp of the system to better understand that, and it could be a possibility, a maybe, that something better is out there, that before we spend on this money, that we should go and do something else?
Yeah, Madam
You
Chair.
think that this is better right now before that?
I believe so, and the reason is because just even looking only at these are very, very minor things that we're doing, upgrades, and it costs about $600,000. So the other
Look at it this way. With all the contracts that we do, with all the contracts that we've already awarded, that we've already agreed to, that will move on to the board, this is minuscule, but it is still $600,000. So the question for me, to really feel comfortable, okay, I have an old shoe. Should I continue polishing it and changing the sole and doing this and the insole, or should I go out there, get an analysis, and perhaps there is a better shoe, a more comfortable shoe, and everything do-all shoe, bright and shiny and new. I'm trying to get a better feel.
Madam Chair, let me just ask you, how much did you pay for that shoe? And I think but in all sincerity, that's the question that we need to evaluate: is how much would it cost to
do? So an analysis would allow us to figure out, by doing all these upgrades, maybe this isn't enough of an upgrade. We would then get to this level, and that old shoe would still work even maybe better than the new ones that are out there. I don't know, but I just feel like we need to really look out there, look at the full view. So that's what I'm just trying to get a better feel.
No, we could certainly.
I'm a woman, and new shoes are better than old shoes, okay?
Now, the thing is that in this case, we're not getting a whole new shoe. You're just getting the laces that are new. You're getting, the whole, comparing it to the shoes is a quick way of the example, but what happened is actually our infrastructure is actually a lot more than just this. This is just the basic core. Now, the analysis, to answer the question, yes, it could be done, and I could very much entertain, work with consultants that could come in and tell us, yes, this is what we're doing. Now, what we have done, and this is, we have not only used our GECs, where in, I believe, about 7 years ago, they made a recommendation of it, but we've also used our financial auditors. The financial auditors come in and tell us, yes, and they report it all the time. You guys are on track. You guys are doing what you're doing. You're doing good. Continue investing on this. And the reason is because the minute that we begin to look at how much more it will cost us, I can tell you without even doing that analysis, because that's what we do, that it will be millions and millions of dollars to really get a new pair of shoes. So these upgrades are not Band-Aiding. These upgrades are not, I would not do that. They're not Band-Aiding. It's called an upgrade because you're getting a new. We're not Band-Aiding. This is not a Band-Aid.
Now you gave me the level of comfort of what I was looking for. I'm not just putting a little temporary Band-Aid on,
I would not do that.
Issue. We're upgrading where it's going to be of substance and substantial, that it doesn't require a complete overhaul. Okay.
Absolutely. We basically made a huge investment at the beginning, and we're lucky that we haven't had to go through a major change. Like, for example, companies have changed from vendors that had gone bankrupt or whatever the case might be to new vendors that redesigns of the whole thing. So I can guarantee you, and then if you want additional or you need, I could definitely tell you that we could seek for that. Absolutely.
That's why I went with the shoe scenario to try to get what I was looking for. Any questions from the board members?
Nope.
No? You got it? You just don't want to buy a new shoe. That's what it is.
I'm sorry.
I fully understand. Life cycle for this item?
One of the things I think that needs to be stated here, and it's going to go to these other items as well, the technology only lasts so long, meaning the physical piece of equipment. And when it reaches its end of lifetime, which in some cases could be 3 years, you got to replace it. So then you look and they do the assessment of what's out there, and we've already got this Chevrolet that we've got, and it's time to change the oil pump on it because it's reached its life cycle. You're not going to buy a new car, you're just going to change that piece. And you say, okay, well, this oil pump does a lot better than the one we had, and maybe I can get 5 years out of it. That's the assessments that they've done, and that's what they're bringing to you.
Yeah, in case of the life cycle, we basically we try really, really hard to expand the life of the products and extend it to its maximum and above and beyond. Some of them are actually, like I mentioned in here, they're reaching end of life. And not only with this upgrade, we will take care of, once a product gets to an end of life, you stop receiving maintenance and support from the manufacturers, which actually puts us at risk, because for as good as our technicians are, we are not the manufacturers. We can't offer that level of service. So we're making sure that we're receiving the level of service for maintenance and support that is adequate to continue with our operations.
I think we now fully are engaged and understand this a little better. We're not getting a new shoe. Very good. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carries. That's for F. Now we go to D.
Item F, MDX procurement contract, ITB 16-05, capacity expansion of the enterprise storage solution, estimated $420,000. Approval to advertise.
Madam Chair, this item is very similar in all those aspects and questions. However, this item has a background and a little bit of a history. But basically, I'm requesting a motion to approve the advertisement of an invitation to bid to expand the capacity of the current enterprise solution. This is expand. There's no actually upgrades in here of our current enterprise solution. About 3 years ago, we implemented an enterprise storage solution to support the administrative operations. This enterprise storage solution was not originally intended to be utilized as part of the MDX toll system. So going back to the item number, B, item B on the agenda, when during the ETCC disentanglement, we all had to react. And basically what we did was staff found an opportunity to use our existing storage solution at that time, which was the one that we had just purchased, to be able to accommodate for all that additional storage that needed for the transition. Now, in order to continue supporting Transcode in this case, with the implementation of the UFM, which Steve had talked about it, and also to increase our storage, we need to expand the capacity, to add additional storage, if you may. Now, due to the system that we're using in this case, it's not Cisco, it's NetApp. NetApp, it's the provider of our storage solution for this. And what we're looking for is an invitation to bid that will be limited also to authorized resellers, vendors, and distributors of NetApp hardware. This estimate is $420,000. This will allow us to support the UFM transaction format, as well as the agency ensuring interoperability with other tolling agencies by supporting UFM. These funds have been budgeted under the approved MDX operations budget.
Okay. Motion?
Second.
Okay. Item is open. Any questions? No, we got it?
Makes sense.
Very good. There's no benefit when we go with the agreement, the centralized customer service agreement. This is something that we're going to need no matter what.
We're going to be responsible for submitting the video images that are correct. So we are still going to have a role to play at MDX as it relates to toll by plate, because the transactions that go to the centralized back office have to be good transactions. So SunPass goes directly. The toll by plate, we need to make sure they're good transactions so that they get processed and paid. Okay. So there's still a role here for us to look at the toll by plate.
A lot of this is coming on the next agenda item. Specifically for this is the communication component, which Ivan mentioned, the uniform financial message that we're transitioning to. It requires this additional space for storage and so forth, and that's kind of where he's going with this.
In a nutshell, if I can put it in lay terms, MDX is growing up. We're a true toll system facility. Of all of our facilities, we're processing over 450 million transactions a year.
Triple almost
85% of them are SunPass. So just do the math. They go over there and need the UFM. but the other 15% are video images, toll-by-plate. That's an exorbitant amount of data that is being generated on an annual basis. That's what this is all about.
Very good. Any questions on this item?
Yeah, I do have one quick question. When do you see toll-by-plate being phased out?
When someone can guarantee that they'll pay us when the transaction occurs at the lane. And that's yet to be sent. We've met with a lot of folks that tell us, "Oh, we'll front you the money, but then if we can't collect, we want to use your laws to go after the driver and potentially suspend driver's license." And the issue there is, if I already collected my money, how can I use the law to go after you? So it really doesn't. There's a lot of people that have said, "I'll guarantee you the money," but no one's come to the table with a real solution yet.
We tried.
That's the issue.
I don't think that's going away.
No.
Because I truly don't believe that everybody wants to have a sun pass. There's a percentage of the people that just don't.
That's
where it goes. I think that the evolution of whether it's a sun pass or the toll by plate, I think, is going to be in technology. There might be a day whether it's this or the navigation system in your car that is linked to tolls. So that's the evolution of that.
There's a company that just signed Transcore actually with another company that builds the smart mirrors that you have, the ones that dim and have the rear view camera and all that. They're going to put the transponder chip in that mirror starting next year. So
And who gets to activate it?
it's whoever wants to. If
Right.
you're the guy
It's the
with
driver
car,
that gets to activate it, and sometimes they choose not to activate it. That's the key to the whole thing. Listen, there's a lot of options out there, but the problem is that the user is the one that does not want to use it, does not want to activate it and do it. And so technology will progress, things will get smarter, but then the user does not want to get to that point.
Nope.
You know?
I'm with you, but everyone, even if you don't want to, everyone knows where you are at any given point in time.
That is true, but also understand we're the lucky ones. We get to have this particular smart device. Not everybody out there, there's probably an 80% that's out there that doesn't have this type of smart device.
Even Adele uses flip phones, as we recently saw.
So, what can I tell you? No other questions on this item? There's a lot of sidebar going on to the left side, but we'll try to contain it. Did you see how fast that was? I told you I would contain it pretty quickly. No, I won't. Not to a board member, I wouldn't do that. But to staff, I'm going to give you time out. Did you see that one? This is the last call for this item. There is a motion and a second, and if there's no questions, we're calling the question.
Aye.
All right, all those in favor? All right. Anyone against can be recorded as such. Motion carries. I mean, you came here today asking for a lot of money, and the things are all engaged, but really are not the same thing, but they feel like they are, but they're not.
Absolutely.
So go on to the next one.
Not done yet. For the record, MDX procurement contract ITB 16-06. Expansion, upgrade of toll system image storage. Estimated at $220,000. Approval to advertise.
Madam Chair, this item, I'm seeking a motion to approve advertisement of an invitation to bid to expand, upgrade the current toll system image storage. This is not capacity, it's not our enterprise storage solution, but it's just basically the image. To give you a little bit of a background, I think that Steve mentioned something. Back in 2013, we entered into contract with Q-Free, pursuant to the contract MDX 14-03. At the time, we procured the necessary storage based on the requirements that we had. But this is the next. This is an interesting component because since then, the application and the technology, both of them have evolved simultaneously. And in this case, it's not necessarily storage, but it's actually the speed. It's actually the performance in which these components had been able to process X number of transactions, process X number of video images. So because of that, we are seeking an invitation to bid that will authorize resellers, vendors, and distributors of Oracle hardware and services. Oracle, in this case, is the vendor that we use to process the image, or to store or to do the toll system image storage. By expanding and upgrading the current toll system image storage, we're able to meet new performance requirements. This is a little bit different than capacity, but it's along the same lines. The estimated funds have been budgeted under the approved MDX operations budget, and the estimate is $220,000.
Okay, is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay, item is open for any questions?
Move to approve.
No questions, right? No?
Madam Chair, this is
Yes.
Rick Rodriguez speaking. Yeah. I have a question of Ivan. Ivan, this is just for the transactions on the tollway, correct? This is nothing to do with data capturing outside of those transactions. So does this have capacity for other types of data that we want to collect, or is it exclusively just for the toll transactions and video images?
In this particular case, it's for the image of the toll system. Now, again, this could actually very, very well, as we get additional requirements on the internal storage of, if we do see an opportunity where we could use it for something else, we could very well use it, and this is the advantage of that integrated system, and all under the same vendor in this particular case. So it's only for the image, for the toll system.
So if you could, Madam Chair, a follow-up question. So you understand where I'm headed is, if we're talking about data collection and future potential business opportunities, the data is it's very powerful, collecting data. And if there's a business opportunity that is in the future becomes available, we will have the capacity, Ivan, to augment the data capturing unrelated to the video imaging, whether it's cell phone communications or any other type of new technology that comes out there. We are questioning that we're planning ahead, not having to add capacity, 5 years from now, because of the rate of technology and how fast things are moving.
Board Member Pena, to answer your question briefly, I would say that yes, this will allow us to continue expanding as we get new requirements or there's new business need. I don't know what those will be in years, but I can guarantee you that in this case, whether it's the storage capacity, which was the item before, or this item, which is for performance, the reason in this case of performance is because the amount of requirements needed by the systems to process image. But things such as, let's say, mobile cell phones, numbers, or things of other nature, they might not necessarily need this level of performance, and we could basically use the previous enterprise storage system, that item, in this case, that I brought. So to answer your question is, on all these cases, anytime there is a new requirement, what it allows us is, because of our understanding of the technology and working directly with the manufacturers, it allows us to fairly easy do an upgrade or expand it. I would use the word expand it. Sometimes it's not an upgrade, it's just an expansion of it. So the answer is yes, knowing what we know today, yes.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? No? The question is called. I have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
against? It carries. Thank you very much, Ivan.
Madam Chair, I just want to say something real quick, because Javier was looking at me when Board Member Myers mentioned about the dynamic master signs. I will like to share two facts. I believe that at the end of, whenever World Fiber finishes, at the end of that contract, we will be probably, if I'm correct, we will be the first agency to have the larger numbers of full color matrix DMSs implemented. Not in quantity or amber signs, which are the ones with the other type of letters, but we will be the first one to have the larger numbers of full color matrix. And full color matrix means that it allows us to also display symbols, which one of the reasons we went with those is because of the symbols allow the patrons, the customers, to recognize and read faster than letters. So we will be pretty much in the first ones on that with the largest amount. So
Kudos.
Just wanted to.
Kudos.
Well, thank you. Thanks to you guys. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ivan. Before we proceed to the next item, H, let me ask you a quick question. In this procurement report that we have, Helen, in the active contracts by firms report, those numbers that are being carried, is that the total contract amount or the amount that is being expended in this fiscal year?
Depends on the contract.
So each item is not the same thing?
Right, some contracts has an upper limiting amount, and that's what you see there. Some contracts are based on task authorizations issued, so the number that you have there would be the authorized amount of the contract. So, for example, a project-specific contract like the 83628 that we enter into a contract for $65 million, that's the amount that you will see here. Contracts that are TA or work order driven, the amount that you will see here would be the amount of authorized work orders that have been issued to the consultant or contractor.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yes and no. It doesn't give us what we really need to know. I think what would be good to know is not just the contract amount, but really how much is being spent of the contract in that fiscal year. I think that's what this
That's
should
another
be.
column.
That's another column. That's not the
what
contract
would
amount.
be-
That's year to date or fiscal year. Okay.
Right, what is actually happening in that year, because we're looking at this figure that could be the contract amount for 4-6 years, and not necessarily that's really what's happening.
Right. This is your
This-
contract history. You want to see it on a per fiscal year basis.
I think that's what we need, because,
Gotcha.
On page 1017, I got lost, and when I got lost, I'm just saying that as a joke, Q Free America, $9 million something, and it was like, what?
That's the not to exceed amount.
Exactly.
Right, not the,
So I think that's where it strike a chord that we need to separate the contract on actuals being spent. So then we really know what's really happening with that account.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay?
Okay, we'll do that.
Great. And then we go to the last item.
Item H, centralized customer service system master agreement, approval of agreement in substantial form.
Madam Chair, in your folders, there is a master agreement between Miami-Dade Expressway Authority and the Florida Department of Transportation. A little bit of history for those board members that weren't here. It's been maybe 4.5 to 5 years ago that the 4 major toll agencies in Florida decided that we needed to have a consolidated, centralized customer service center. Because of the advent of tolling in Florida, a customer, and this was all the reason for doing this was customer-driven. A customer in Miami in one day can go through 3 different agencies' tolls. If you're driving to Disney World, for instance, you're going to go through MDX, you're going to go through Florida's Turnpike, and you're going to go through the Osceola Expressway Authority, which has a completely different, the E-Pass, let's say, system. If you're going to the west coast of Florida, you may have gone to Sanibel, you go over the Lee County. So what ends up happening is, from a customer service standpoint, I have a problem. With the advent of toll by plate, with the advent of the customer-driven system, I have a problem with my SunPass, and I call MDX. MDX, I have a problem. MDX's answer is, well, I can't fix it, SunPass has to fix it. So now you have to call SunPass. It became a big problem. Conversely, you call SunPass, SunPass says, well, that's not me, that's a toll by plate, you have to call MDX. So there was a lot of patchwork. So we decided, from a customer standpoint, let's do this. By doing this, the idea was that we would all benefit from a price standpoint, because now you have a lot more transactions occurring. You're going to get the benefit of the volumes of vendors. So for 2 years, MDX, along with Orlando's Expressway Authority, Tampa, and Florida's Turnpike, participated and put together a scope of work. We entered into a memorandum of agreement early on of how we were going to operate and work together. We put out the RFP. 5 firms, Steve, 5 firms submitted proposals. The recommended award was to Xerox. The award was protested. The protest through the Department of Transportation elevated all the way to the Department of Justice, the Division of Administrative Hearings. Long story short, and after a year plus of delay, the contract was finally awarded to Xerox. Negotiations occurred. All the agencies had representatives observing the negotiations. They completed the negotiations. This master agreement, in essence, says how we will work with the Department of Transportation in executing this agreement. It addresses how we're going to be charged for the transactions, not only the SunPass transactions, but the toll by plate. It also sets it up where you have participating agencies and the the external, I think they called it a different, external agencies. As a participating agency, there is a price structure that we're all going to participate in. We're all going to share in the capital cost. The capital cost of the system was roughly $43 million. Our share is ballpark 30%. So we're all going to share in the capital. But here's what's going to happen. As external companies come in, agencies, and I'll give you one, Lee County, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, that will have their tolls processed through Florida, they're going to have to pay a transaction fee. That transaction fee is going to be offset to the participating agency. So long term, or over a period of time, our operating costs are going to be reduced. That was the whole goal from an operational standpoint. But at the end of the day, this was about customer service. This was the centralized services is going to be in Orlando, but they're going to have offices in Miami, in Tampa, potentially Jacksonville. Is what they're discussing, so that a customer can walk into a store, a place here in Miami, and resolve anything they need to do with their transactions, even if it's in North Carolina for that matter, if they're a participating agency. So it was always about customer service. This is in substantial form, board members. There are still some minor edits that we are going back and forth with the Department of Transportation. That we will incorporate it to the final agreement before it's executed, but this moves us in the next to the next step, and it's before you for consideration.
But we're going to go ahead. Do you want to say anything else?
No, I just want to tell you your mic wasn't on.
It's a good thing that I had it off.
Madam Chair, let me say something to you. Why sometimes you are so sarcastic with me? Because it's something that, I have been here for a year.
You just went to
and always you have been trying to push me down. And,
Really?
you are a lady, and I respect you as a lady. But, let me tell you something. Because I am older than you, and you like something to be your way or the highway. Okay? And I want to tell you, because I have here for a long time, I never have been doing nothing wrong to you. Okay? But mess with the chain, but not with the monkey, please.
There's a statement that says silence is golden, and I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do with you. Silence is golden. I'm sorry if you felt that I was being derogatory with you, and that had nothing to do with it. But, we need to move forward. So with that, I call the question. Is there a motion? And second?
Second.
Okay, the item is open for discussion. We're going to have a lot of questions on this particular item. Who's going to take it on? Who's taking on the questions? Is it you?
Oh, yeah.
No, guys, the silence is golden is not intended for you guys.
Let me just start off with saying there's a lot of moving parts on this item, and we worked it as a complete team. The cooperation between the CFOs is really good. A lot what's left is just minor details on how the contributions are going to be handled, how our CFO is going to handle it accounting wise. Steve has worked a lot on just bringing it to where it's at today. So we've sat many times and gone over it, and we're just down to the finest details.
Okay. I'm going to open up some questions, and then everybody can chime in. You mentioned substantial form. This is in substantial form. Does that mean that there is a bigger contract that we're not looking at, or that there may be some other things that will be added to this at some point?
Substantial form, what I mean is that there are some edits that we are going to make that we've given the Turnpike, and we haven't received back a final copy of those edits. The edits are editorial, a request that we're making for a particular report that we would like.
More administrative.
Yeah, they're administrative type. We're requesting that during invoicing of monthly, we want a certain form. So we want to add it to make sure that we don't forget it. And we've submitted those comments to the Turnpike. We got this back last night, or the night before. We distributed to you. That's why we call it substantial form. It's administrative, not substantive. Right? That's the word.
You also said, yes.
If I may, a couple of questions to Javier and Marie. So we're making a financial commitment, obviously, to be part of this affiliated group, which is we get the practical benefits. From a budgeting perspective and from a financial impact perspective, are we going to come out of pocket initially, and then what is the return on investment, if you will? Can you kind of give a quick overview and respond to that?
Certainly. So the contract between the department and Xerox is it's a 13-year contract. It's worth about $600 million. That's the entire amount of the contract. The capital cost is roughly around $45 million, and we're estimating on the high end that our portion of it is 30%. We think we're going to come in a lot less than 30%. There's a whole formula methodology that we need to follow. But we think that the capital cost is somewhere around, let's say $12 million. The operating cost for the first 6 years is roughly all in with maintenance is about $50 million. So we think, again, our share is somewhere around 30%. So about $15 million. So today, our budget from the department is a little bit over $20 million. So we can potentially see a $5 million savings and even higher, because what we don't get today is we don't get the benefit of all those external agencies' revenue that's coming into the department. So as far as return on investment, I would say within the second year or third year, we would recoup our capital cost, and we would drive down our operating costs by several million dollars. So I think that's where we see the financial benefit. As Javier indicated, there is some other non-financial benefits to the customer. It's not necessarily apples to apples, because what we're getting with the Turnpike is additional scope and some enhanced services that we don't have in-house today that we have part of our budget.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, follow-up question. Marie, so I guess at some point in time, we would like to get to more details of the board. I know this document came in a couple of nights ago. So what I would ask, I feel a responsibility to the rest of our board members to hone in on those numbers just for clarification purpose. So whether it's at this coming board meeting or the following board meeting, I would request that we got a more accurate cost and projection of what our ROI would be over what period of time. So thank you, Madam Chair.
I apologize, but I guess because of, this came in late and so forth, there's not an error in this package, but there will be an error for the board meeting describing a lot of what he's asking for.
And the process for this particular contract, would it not go to budget? Because it does address money? Doesn't it?
I think we wanted to take it to ops, and I think we want to make sure that we are able to get it to the committee, the board meeting for February. We will take it to Budget and Finance to evaluate it, but it's going to go to Budget and Finance in any event because we're going to put it part of our budget.
Well, that was the question.
Yes.
When is it going, and is it going? Because there is implications of money. And, given that the treasurer was online, that was one of the first questions that I was going to end up posing. Other expenses implicated here, because on one of their line items, it's on page 6, that's the first thing they're calling for. In 30 days after receipt of the invoice, everybody has to pay the design and implementation costs. So
right.
Absolutely, there's a check that has to go out.
Correct. And what we have discussed internally is that we're going to put those capital costs our share of the capital cost, $12 million in the work program, because it's not all in one particular year. There's an initial cost. I think our initial capital contribution is somewhere around $2 to $3 million. And then there's various milestones that the vendor has to earn before we pay out the additional capital costs. So we're going to put it in a work program over the implementation period.
I hate to be the spoiler, okay? Hate to be the spoiler.
I second your motion, Madam Chair.
Yes. But in this case, to fully understand this particular contract, you have to step back a moment and you got to understand all the numbers. We fully understand that working together is the right thing to do, that everybody has been at the table and there's a seat at the table that has a benefit, has a great benefit. Also because the face and information. When I say the face of who is giving the customer service. When you call and you have a problem, you are not a ping pong ball being thrown around to all the agency and really the one that knows is Turnpike. We don't know, they don't know. Now everybody's going to know. And we're all working together. But we're looking at the contract, but the contract right now is silent of what it means in terms of figures. And figures is important because you approve this contract, you are approving those expenditures. I mean, so for me, we see the contract, but we need to know the figures. So, approving the contract with it now not knowing the figures, this is a great contract, but I think we need to know the figures.
What we know that's factual today is that there's a contract with Xerox that's $600 million. That's what the department has entered into. And of that $600 million, 45 roughly is capital cost. There's a formula in our master agreement that basically says your share of that capital cost and those operating costs are going to be based upon how much you use the Turnpike's various services, which is SunPass and Toll by Plate. So there is this formula that they put together that we agree to that makes sense to us. So what we think on an upper end that our share of that overall cost is going to be no more than 30%, and that's what we're throwing that 30% number out there. I think it's going to be a lot lower. The agreement that we have today with the Turnpike is on a transaction fee. So the benefit to this contract that we don't have today is that when we send them a transaction today, we pay per transaction. Under this agreement, we're going to be paying, if we hit that customer's account, even if they have 4 transactions, we only pay once for it. So that's where we feel the economy of scale is going to come in.
But you know what we need, not just to read this contract, we need everything that belongs to it, everything that gets covered under this umbrella. And basically what that means. It's very nice to hear, to feel comfortable, oh, this is going to save us. Okay. But what is it really going to save us? Because this is also going to require a new investment. This is also going to require some other things that we must maintain. So as a policymaker, if you want to give your stamp, your signature, your approval, in this particular case and in all cases, we need to know the unknowns, even though the unknowns are just a guess estimate. It could always increase. It could always be more. It could always be less. But we need to know the unknowns, and there's a lot of questions. So in this case, this is what I'm going to say, and I want to yield to Member Vasquez. This has to come in with more information. My point of view, this has to come in with more information. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a $40 million deal and $50 million deal, $100 million deal, we get to pay our share, this is what it means, we pay per transaction $1 something, now we're going to pay 80 cents, whatever it is, spill the beans so then we get a better comfort, and then it's like we will be celebrating the efforts, the energy that has gone behind this to get to where we are. That's why I said it. I'm going to be the spoiler. Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, would it be a good idea that this committee not act on this item today, allow it to go through Budget and Finance, and then come back to this committee before we make a recommendation to the full board?
I know that it needs approval from operations, but what I'm saying is correctly. It needs more information for operations to approve it and budget and finance to approve it. We can both agree that we can send it off to the board, but it has to be provided at that point, because then we're going to go back and we're going to say, hey,
if I may,
these items have not been given. I know you need this now.
Right now, we're in the process of sitting at the table, being part of the system implementation team. And because of the fact that we do need to get the agreement, that's the very fact. So what I would suggest is, I mean, if this committee would consider approving this or endorsing this to the board, we will provide you an air with all the detailed information that you and Mr. Rodriguez.
I don't know if I have the authorization as a chair of this committee to go in and say, let's go in and approve it or not approve it, but I will say the following. I am not going to vote on this item without knowing everything. There's no way. Now, if you want my no as the chair of the committee, and I will put the reason why, then that's okay. But I can call the question, we can open it up, and then we could all vote. But we need more information.
Who's the maker of the motion that's on the floor right now? It's me?
Neither you or I.
So,
Would it be possible to endorse it with a caveat?
No, I don't want to endorse it. I want to move it on. We can move it on to the board, if that's okay with my members. We can move it on to the board, which is exactly what you need, with all the information needed.
Yeah.
So it can, at that point, be discussed and addressed and voted on. But you also have to understand that you need the blessing, and I know he's still here, of the treasurer, because he is also then foregoing
Can we hear from
this
him?
item going to his committee.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
definitely, and I know that Marie reached out to me this week and we were unable to talk, so I definitely don't have the comfort level at this point to approve it. I feel, I feel a certain responsibility as a treasurer on behalf of all of the remaining 12 board members to really understand and feel comfortable, be able to convey that to you with a passion that I can, to say this is a great deal. I understand it and feel comfortable that I vetted this on behalf of those of you who didn't have time to. At this point in time, I don't feel that comfort. And again, whether it's lack of coordination, the fact that this thing came in 2 days ago, it's nobody's fault. But ultimately, as policymakers, as you stated, Madam Chair, we have a significant responsibility in something that of this magnitude. While we all clearly understand the benefits, I don't think anybody's questioning the benefits. I think it's that the details that I personally feel that I need to know a lot better as as a person responsible for the budget. So with that said, that's where I feel about it. Do we have a drop dead decision that we have to make in order to satisfy the rest of the team moving this, meaning the state team? Moving this along, what is the urgency, if you will, that I didn't hear?
If I may, and I think we need to put this in perspective a little bit. We have an agreement today with SunPass. It exists. Every year we get a letter from the Department of Transportation telling us how much we owe for the year. It's an estimate of what the year would be. It gets included in the budget process, which is coming up now, as a line item. The urgency in this is that we're already at the table participating with the vendors. I think what's missing from this, and I agree with you, Madam Chair, and I agree with everybody, every comment, and Maria and I actually discussed this. What's missing here is here's a master agreement. What we need to compare is what we pay today with all the agreements that exist. This is what we pay today. This is what is budgeted in the MDX operations budget. And then we take these formulas that aren't going to change, and we populate them, and we show you what the new agreement means to us, so you can compare those two things. That's what Marie was saying, that we can have that prepared for the air for the board meeting on Tuesday. I would also recommend that even if the board takes action on Tuesday, it still needs to be recommended to the Budget and Finance, because this is an item that has to be part of the budget. So it still needs to go through a budgeting process, because how many transactions, what are the audited transactions, what are the costs that we're going to be, how are we going to do the benefit cost analysis. So all of that needs to be in play. I understand that. But the agreement, and again, I say contract. This is an agreement between us and the department. It's not an agreement between us and Xerox.
We fully
right.
understand that, and I'm happy that you got clarity of what
Yeah.
it is that we're looking for, but understand that it will always continue to be a line item in our budget, but we need to define that line item as we proceed today, because there is that other line item that we do the business and we write the check every year, and it feels high, so we need to know now how that line item will now phase out or change with this one. And then what other items that we're currently spending and using in our own back office that will be phased out, who is being phased out, what is being phased out, and what is being brought in new. Because there is implications on this of expenses. There are new expenses, old expenses, and maybe less expenses, but still putting it all in one universe. So then we go in and we say, man, this was great, but right now it's an unknown. And I hear you saying that it needs to go in with a recommendation to the board. You're saying that.
I'm saying that if this is endorsed to the board, what we would do at the board is make that comparison for you. And it's only an endorsement to the board. It's not a yes or a no. That's what I'm saying, because I know that there's information missing that we don't have yet.
Define endorsement to the board. Does that mean that we call a vote?
Well, I mean, we could, you could change the question or amend the question to approve of agreement in substantial form. Subject to explanation provided on air. That way, you vote on the amendment, and then you vote on the endorsement. It doesn't, and it will. Everybody's here who's going to discuss it anyway. I
don't want anybody on the board to misunderstand. We're not asking you to endorse something or approve something you're not comfortable with. We understand there's information missing. We wouldn't be going down this path if we didn't think that there's going to be a reduction. We need to share that with you. We understand that. And we will have that prepared for you.
What I would like to do is commit to the committee that, I need to meet with the treasurer prior to the board meeting on Tuesday, so he could go over it as well, and he's comfortable before the information is voted on Tuesday.
Right now, he doesn't have a full grasp or understanding of what it is, the savings. He can't call out and say, hey, we're going to save $1 million. No. Or we're going to save $100,000,
And
then that someone has looked at it.
So I think, if I may, Madam Chair, the record's clear to staff that we have our certain concerns. We want them addressed prior to the board meeting, and if it's an endorsement without such financial commitments, I say we proceed with the vote and move it.
Okay.
I'd agree with Board Member Vasquez's opinions and suggestions. I do have a quick question for the staff. This centralized customer service system, is this what we were talking about, Steve, when you and I were having a conversation around the centralized system to capture data that we can not capture right now for the cashback dividend program?
It will offer us that opportunity, yes.
Okay. That said, I think that needs to be a part of the exploration effort, and I'd like to have that on the record, because if that does impact our cashback dividend program, there's going to be more expenditures, most likely, correct?
No, actually, there won't be. The system itself will provide its own discount program along the same lines that we have today through their system. So we may actually not have to do it and save money. When we put the agreement together with the RFP that went out, it included the ability to do discount programs. One of those was a discount program that we set up. If we can do it through that system and have them do all the work, where it automatically goes into somebody's account or something like that, we may be able to win by it.
Correct. But what I'm saying is that there's going to be more expensive. Right now, we're on the basis of people actually having to apply and actually having to submit within a certain period of time. If through this centralized system, my understanding was we would have the ability to no longer have to have people apply, and we can automatically know, or we would already know, how many folks are utilizing our system at that rate above $50 or $100 a year.
Yes, sir.
So in a sense, we would then be giving back more, correct? Or is that based on our budgeted, our annual budget of what we intend?
Remember that the cashback dividends was whatever's left
Correct,
over.
whatever's left over.
What your
But
answer is,
diluted.
the answer is you would have more of a population of folks that would get money back.
Right.
Understood, thank you.
In addition to the financial are also the improved benefits, okay? The added value.
Right.
What other bells and whistles are coming in with this that we don't have now? That by doing this, program, we now have some added value, some other benefits, customer service components that are in there, improvements to the system, whatever it is. So not only the financial, but your end as to the other things that will be realized.
Madam Chair, if I could, I wanted to add 2 points to this, and that we would have the numbers, but in order for us to get the numbers, we need the Turnpike and the other agencies to provide the information. We know what our numbers are, which is the numerator. We don't know what the denominator is to be able to figure out what those costs will be. This is something that we need to work
but that
through.
also provides another question. Does that change? If they're less, does that mean that we pay more, or does that mean that our percentage into it stays the same? Because that's a...
Actually, the less people in, the more the Turnpike pays because they got the higher number of transactions.
Okay, those are the things that we need to know, that it doesn't change. Our percentage is our percentage, whether we're the biggest ones or we're the smallest ones, or, because we are a bigger market. I don't know, but you see, those unknowns are what we need to address.
Here's the thing. Today, we pay 100% for a transaction. Okay, we pay that fee regardless. When we do a mailing to a customer, we pay the entire amount. I would venture to say over 50% of the people that get a letter from us get a letter from the Turnpike. So right there, 50% of what we're mailing out, we can cut in half. Because now we're going to share that mail, and both of our information is going to be on one piece of mail. These are the benefits. But what I'm saying is the numerator is MDX transactions. The denominator is everybody else's numbers. So once we get that denominator, that figures out the percentage. Then we know, because the rates are already set in the contract. It's per usage day. So if a person rides our road once that day, that counts as a numerator. If they ride the heft, that counts as 1. So now the numerator is 1 for us, the denominator is 2. So we cut in half. That's that's what we're saying. But we'll get all that information in order to provide you those details.
Madam Chair, we're about to lose 2 members and a quorum. I would just like to suggest that we vote. I'm sorry.
I think that if we amend, we were asking for endorsement of the agreement in substantial form. I think if we rephrased or amended it to a conditional endorsement of the centralized service agreements in substantial form, subject to a full explanation of the benefits of the CCS to our current system. Well, I full benefits because there's several areas of benefits. One is financial, but
We need to define what it is that we're looking for, and what we're looking for is the financial implications and any other improvements and benefits that we're getting by doing this this customer service system master agreement.
Yeah, I think that if we just conditional endorsement.
Get in, and then I'll call the question.
Okay, conditional endorsement of the centralized customer service agreement in substantial form, subject to a full explanation of benefits of the CCS to the current system to include the financial implications.
Very good. Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay. We just heard it as read into the record. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against?
Madam Chair, I'm going to support it for the record, with some reservations, and until, I know it's conditional. I heard everything our council suggested, but I just wanted to go on the record to say that, again, I feel an extra responsibility, so I'll be working closely with staff, but I'm going to support it conditionally.
Okay, so it passes unanimously, and what you already heard, the concerns here today, we need to see those items. If not, you're going to hear them, but it could be negative votes on when you go to the board. Okay? And with that, this item now passes. And do we need to know anything else? You want to share any news with us?
Yeah, two things, and I think I've mentioned it to a couple yesterday. Senate Bill 574 by Senator Flores passed Senate Committee of Rules. The bill has three components. The first one is that it reduces the board from 13 members to 9 members through attrition. Effective July 1st of 2016 is when the attrition would start. The second is, as we discussed in the past, restrictions of who can be appointed to the board. If you've done business with MDX or have done business with a company that's done business with MDX, you're restricted. And then the third element was if you violate ethics or financial disclosure, you're removed from a board. That bill passed the Senate. The next stop is the Senate floor. The House has already gone through the House, so probably...
So if we project the attrition process, what does that mean?
The attrition, through attrition, basically any board member that is on the board as of July 1st of 2016 serves their entire term. If a board member hasn't been appointed or replaced as of July 1st and their terms were up prior to that, then those positions are eliminated. That's the way it works. And then the bill talks about that you can't fill positions after that until you meet the 9, which is 5 county, 4 state. That's the way it works.
With one being District
members.
6. Javi, it's 4 state, but one's always going to be the
One is
District
always
6
the district
secretary.
secretary.
So that's right.
Correct.
You know, it's going to be 5 and 3 and 1.
Yeah, 5, 3, and 1, yeah.
You know, I said in the last month that you were not here, when the voting of the last meeting, I make a statement that, you know, that I am stepping down after this bill go to the Senate, and maybe my next meeting going to be the next one, because as Bernardo Escobar said, that if the government don't veto, and he don't going to veto, he going to be, that law going to be in the next 7 days. That means that going to be the February 24th. That means that you don't have to see me, you know, after the 23rd. Thank you.
All right. Not hearing anything else. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn it.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.